to another episode of Lie, Cheat, and Steal, the podcast about liars, frauds, thieves, and bullshitters. I'm your host, Pat Royce. Just to remind you, we are a bi-monthly podcast. That means 2 episodes every month. If that's not enough for you, though, don't worry. You can get 2 more episodes every month on our Patreon at patreon.com/lie, cheat, and steal. And that's not it on the internet. We are everywhere. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at Lie, Cheat, Steal Podcast. So come on out, click a follow, throw a few likes, you know what I'm saying? Get the ball moving. That being said, again, I'm your host, Pat Royce, and I'm here as always with my co-host, Kath Barbadoro. Kath, how you doing?
Hi, Pat. I'm okay. I am kind of losing it this month. I am going a little crazy. I feel like I had the thing happen where I know I am too busy.
Oh, yeah.
The red flag was thrown, and that was that I lost my wallet today, which is how I know I got too much shit going on. If you listen to my other podcast, What a Time to Be Alive, there's a running joke on there that I am constantly throwing my wallet in the trash. That like it's like an instinct that I must fight at all times.
Yeah.
And I lost the battle.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So that's like your canary in the coal mine.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a sign of like you got to call into work for a day soon. Like
yeah.
you gotta take some time. And so I feel like I'm a little all over the place today, but I'm making it through. It's always nice to do a podcast, recenter myself.
Yeah.
Right? This is my natural habitat at this point. So I'm getting through it. It's all fun stuff. It's all fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. As we were just talking about somewhat wallet related hijinks before we started. My card, which I used today, all right, was just not working on the parking garage, and some kind but more or less probably more frustrated stranger just walked up.
Kind, fed up stranger.
Yeah, and they just hit like a little entry card. They're like, "I live here, you piece of shit." They like just let me in. I don't know what it's gonna be like leaving though. I don't know if I'm gonna need a ticket or.
Yeah, that's a good question. You'll find out. That person swiped you in being like, this is your problem later. This is not my problem now. I'm kicking this can down the road for you. I gotta get in. I gotta get home.
There's a place like North Campus. It's this sandwich shop. And I was going there and they have a split level parking garage. The first level is for sandwich shop customers and other places in the business. The top level is for people that live there. You have to card in and card out. But the gate shuts slow. So I just one day I'm going to get a sandwich. I'm just all sandwich oriented at this point. I go in and I drive up into the top part. The gate's open. I drive in and I leave. I go, I eat the sandwich. It was great. And then I go back and I take the elevator up and get in my car and I leave. I just can't leave. I was like looking around.
Oh my God.
And I was there for like 20 minutes. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, I tried to call the apartment place. I got nothing. It was all just about leasing and shit. And finally some dude was leaving. I was like, hey, I'm stuck in here. And he was like, that happens more than you think. And I was like, all right, good. I hope. I wonder if people like whenever you're like, oh, I'm sure this happens all the time or whatever. They're like, no, this never happens. You're an idiot. So if you're ever in that situation, if you want to make somebody's day better, say this happens all the time.
Yeah. It does. I had to do that today at work. Somebody was confused about something and I knew the answer, but I was like, don't worry, it's confusing.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Like I get it.
Emotional labor.
Yeah. That reminds me though, like I really don't miss the parking element of having a car. Like that fucking sucks.
It does.
And I remember one time, the only time I ever owned a car was when I lived in Austin. And there was one time where I went to the Domain and something about the parking garage I was in, I was just having so much trouble like navigating it. And I could not find my car for like 20 minutes. I was walking around up and down this parking garage. I was like clicking the thing and I could hear it beeping. I was like, my car is here, but I can't. It was like a weird like Mobius strip or something. I couldn't figure out how to get to it. It was driving me crazy. It seriously took 20 minutes. It was like the Seinfeld episode, but like even stupider because I could hear it. It was so close. Yeah,
those are confusing. The way they like loop back into itself. That's gotten me more than a couple
double
times.
Helix
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's so much infrastructure for the car to get into the parking garage. But once you're out, it's like, oh, you got to walk into oncoming traffic to get to the stairwell. Like they're like, dude, this is a parking garage. We don't give a shit about your feet or what you do once you're out of the car.
The parking garage inherently has, like, more than anything else, it is 50% one type of transportation, 50% the other. And yet they have built the whole thing for the cars.
It's a like one-to-one.
It literally exists so that people get out of the car and go somewhere else. And yet, you have to walk down the ramp into oncoming parking traffic. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. I parked at a lot near here. It's next to the one. I missed the one I normally go to when I come here. I was doing some shows downtown, and around 5 o'clock, I swung in. It was this weird one where it was just like, yo, text your card or whatever. But I was like, all right, cool. I was gone for like 15. I was like 20 minutes, and I got back, and it was like a minimum rate of $25. And I was like, what the hell? But then I was like, there was no thing. It was like you could just drive out. So it hit me up on the little thing, and it was like, hey, we didn't detect the scan. Yeah, we didn't detect the scan out. So make sure you pay that. Like 3 days later, it was like, pay this, you'll get a $75 fine. And I know it's a robot. I just texted back. I was like, LMAO, fuck off. Like, I'm not.
Yeah. Like, you have no power over me.
Yeah, you have
robot.
nothing. You have like my tip tags on the car I just bought. Good luck. Good luck. Yeah. See, guys, if this is your first episode listening, we are routinely also scamming people. We have.
Yes.
Yeah. This is not an anti-scam podcast. We're in on the ground floor of a lot of them.
We're a bit. Yeah. I feel like we're scam agnostic. We're like, sometimes we're cool with them. Sometimes we're not. But we are not inherently anti-scamming.
Not at all.
I'll say that.
Shout out to our Discord. I got scammed. Somebody made a fake Pat Royce Instagram profile.
That.
Yeah,
that happened to me a while ago too. Somebody like duped your whole like. What did they take from you to make this fake Instagram profile?
I have no clue. It
had your picture.
Oh yeah, it had my picture. Yeah, it had a very a pretty low res thing in my picture. It had my actual screen name. It had @PZ_TX. Am I @PZ_TX? Am I just PZTX?
You must be PZTX, and they PZ_TX.
Yeah. So like I did that. Then people started hitting me up, and like they were like, "This you?" And I was like, "No." It hit a couple people up. It was like, "Hi, are you my fan?" And it was like a little waving emoji. And so I dropped it to Discord. I was like, "Hey guys, heads up." And they ask if you're my fan. Tell them you're my biggest hater. And one of our listeners in the Discord was like, "I'm joining the war against the scam on the side of the scammers."
Yeah. So. Are you my fan? You swore you'd never contact me again.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, congrats on being big enough that some scammers like, I got to message all this guy's fans.
Yeah, it was immediately. I'm doing a show tonight. Me and Josh are on the same show with Rachel Wolfson from Jackass. It was immediately after I got tagged in that. I think that put me on their radar.
Yeah,
they were like,
right.
Yeah, that was like the bigger name I was associated with at that point.
Well, speaking of using bigger names to elevate yourself, we have a classic social climbing con man episode today.
Love them.
Yeah, this one has a fun twist in the sense that it's from Canada. I feel like we've done a couple Canada stories lately.
Yeah, we've been going north of the border.
They're up to some shenanigans up
there. Yeah. Tomfoolery is afoot, or afoot, as I guess they would say.
I just as longtime listeners may know, my best friend lives in Toronto, and she was just visiting me this weekend. So I feel like I was like inspired by because this takes place in Toronto. I'm going in March.
Oh hell yeah!
I've heard they have a great comedy scene. So listeners, if you're in Toronto, keep an eye out on my social media. I will be there in March doing some shows.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully, I will not run into our guy from this episode. Although this is sort of skipping to the end, but it was hard for me to find whether he's still in prison or not.
I was going to ask if he was at large.
It's unclear whether he got out. I feel like he would have been due to get out, but I couldn't find. They made a documentary about him that came out like last year. But other than that, I have not heard any updates. So
due to the French, the francophone like the Quebecois speaking people in France, or in Canada, you're not at large, you're en grand. That's yeah. That was a clear distinction they make up there.
Unclear if he's on ground, but so this guy's name is Albert Rosenberg, and this starts out sort of classic romance scammy. So this woman whose name was Antoinette, they don't use her last name to protect her. She meets Albert Rosenberg on eHarmony in February 2012. Side note, do people still use that?
I was just thinking that. That feels like the luxury brand that's still like dependable. I have no clue. I've never been on a dating app, but like it feels like eHarmony feels like the one where like if you got your shit together. Yeah, it's honestly probably at my own detriment. I'm aware I don't communicate very well non-verbally. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have the picture doesn't scream off the phone, you know? But eHarmony feels like the one where like, you know, I fly Spirit and when it messes up, my mom goes, "You should have flown Delta." And I was like, yeah, no shit, mom. I don't have boomer money. I can't fucking afford Delta.
I think it skews older. And I think it skews like more not conservative politically, but sort of like conservative traditional.
Yeah.
Like older people who are looking for like very modes of like dating and courtship that people our age might find a little old fashioned.
Yes.
That's my sense of it. I think you have to pay for it too. So it's like,
if you want to take a lady out to Pinochle, you meet her on fucking If you're looking for like a lady who shares your love of bridge, the card game, you gotta go on eHarmony.
But yeah, so that's where she was in 2012. She was older. She was 54. She had 2 grown daughters. She was divorced, and she meets this guy, and she's like, you know, in retrospect, yes, it seems unusual that a billionaire Swiss baron would be on eHarmony, but it's 2012. People don't know about Raya yet. He's busy, right? He's busy. So, so he has this European title. Oh, by the way, a lot of this information comes from this 2015 Toronto Life article called "The Yorkville Swindler: How Albert Rosenberg Scammed His Way into High Society." It's by Courtney Shea, who is also the producer of a documentary called "The Talented Albert Rosenberg."
Right.
So thank you to Courtney Shea.
Is it Alan Rosenberg?
Albert Rosenberg.
Albert. Okay. That name sounds like I'm not swindling, but like the talented Mr. Albert Rosenberg. That just sounds like it's got some gravitas to it, you know.
It's snappy.
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of these people, I do believe that is his real name. So he did not use aliases, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he says he is, he has family money, but he has come to Canada working at this financial firm that he started called Marwa Holdings. He said he went to Harvard, as every scammer has. But bilingual, he's got a lot going for him. He's doing really well. He started some like successful business ventures back in Switzerland, where he said he was from. He has a trust fund.
Chocolate. Ever heard of it?
Okay, you're not far off.
Whoa.
Because guess where he says he got some of his money? He says he has a trust because he is the heir to the Ovaltine fortune.
Whoa.
So
is Ovaltine Swiss?
Nailed it. Ovaltine is Swiss.
Oh, damn. All right. I guess, man, I guess when you're not really from there, that's what you fucking think of. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. The thing that's crazy.
My fortune's all tied up in army knives. I can't.
Yeah, exactly. It's in watches.
Yeah.
The thing that is crazy is like most of this shit isn't true. He is connected to the Ovaltine family, as we will find out. So like that one actually isn't totally made up, which is fucking wild.
They should have called it Round Teen because it's round, right? I would have led with that if I was Albert.
That guy, they should have called it Round. Kenny Banya, right? Was his name?
Yeah.
He was the special guest at the Brooklyn Cyclones minor league baseball team Seinfeld night a couple years ago.
That's so
He was the celeb guest. He threw out the first pitch.
Nice.
And they did like an Ovaltine toss or something, or like an Ovaltine spoon race at the halftime. It was delightful.
I love that.
But so she meets this guy. He's really good looking. He's really charming. He's very successful. He has this penthouse apartment in Yorkville, which is like a very wealthy area of Toronto. And they like hit it off and things start moving pretty fast. They go on, this is very Canadian of them. They go on a scenic getaway to Montreal. He starts talking a big game about like all the stuff they're going to do. He's like, I have a home in the south of France. I have a yacht. Like, we're going to go to Europe and live it up. And she, you know, is like, this is very exciting to her.
Yeah.
She's like a pretty normal
Did
person.
she
She has
see
like
the
a
penthouse?
yes. So we're
Okay.
gonna
So,
get
oh
into
yeah,
it.
like obviously there's ways to pull that off, but that's already like he's light years ahead of a lot of scammers where he's like, no, I got the crib. Come on over, girl. Let's
Yeah.
check it out.
I mean, he's bringing her to like they're staying at the Ritz in Montreal. He's got the nice apartment. He knows a lot of like wealthy Toronto business people. They're like going out to fancy dinners. Like he is walking the walk with her.
Yeah.
So after a couple of months, they decide to move in together, and Rosenberg convinces her to sell her home and quit her job, and is like, "I'll take care of you."
Damn.
Um, he told her that he would invest the profits from the sale of her house as well as some of her retirement savings into his company. He like brings her into this holding company as a director. And this is like a financial firm. They like loan money,
Yeah.
you know, at high interest rates to business people and stuff. Um, so he's like, we're gonna get you set up, we're gonna get you a trust, you know, no matter what happens, you're gonna be taken care of by all this. So she gives him $155,000 from the sale of her house. Um, and things are going well. A little while after this, after they've moved in together, they get married. And this is in March of 2013, a little less than a year after they met. Rosenberg proposes with this ring that he says is like a family heirloom. He's like, literally, you should leave it in the safe in the apartment when you go out because it's really fancy and expensive.
That's some rich person shit where like you have the real ring back at the house and then you have like the ring you take out. Like that's
okay, you are like very uncannily predicting elements of this story. I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, okay, so they get married, and then here's the first red flag a little bit. First of all, this is not noted as a red flag in the article, but I think it's a red flag. The ceremony was held in the condo building's party room, which, granted, it is a very nice condo.
Yeah.
That is still not something a billionaire would do.
Yeah. That's very good call. It's like you have access to other places if you have $1 billion.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like you wouldn't do the condo party room. You would get something a little not even necessarily extravagant, just like more special.
Yeah. That like where the kids have birthdays in there and shit.
Exactly. Yeah. Kids have birthdays in there. So I mean, it was a small wedding. They took afterwards, they took about 20 people to this like fancy French restaurant. And then here's the first sort of red flag. Rosenberg says he doesn't feel well and he leaves, and Antoinette's uncle has to pay the bill. So yeah.
Oh, damn.
Piecing out of your own wedding and sticking a relative with the bill. Classic shit.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big red flag out the gate. That's like, because then like any goodwill from her family that you were gonna have to maybe help like grease the scam along, you out the gate, you've already like immediately abandoned that.
It comes up a couple times in this article that like even while he was flexing in all these other ways, he would often leave people with the bill after meals. And like, to me, I don't know, maybe I'm cheap, but like if somebody does that to me, they're like not my friend anymore.
Yeah, no, there's gonna be a follow-up conversation, especially the places I imagine they're eating at, you know, are probably
very fancy, expensive. Right. Yeah. No, if somebody's like, oh fuck, I gotta go, and we're at like you know, a pizza place or something, it's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, up to like $100, I'll spot you and just expect to be paid back.
Yeah.
Or like taken out another time or whatever.
Yeah.
But like a nice dinner, like an occasion dinner, and you just dip when like the expectation was you were gonna pay, you're not a friend.
Yeah. Like, you're damn sure not my husband, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's gotta be
But he would do this to like business people, and it seems like, I guess in this world, everybody's just like, if you complain, it's like, oh, so you don't got it like that? Like,
yeah.
I think that's the vibe.
You make it to where they're trying to keep up with you. And it's just like, hey, I thought I was sitting at the table with some bread getters over here. My bad. Sorry. Right. Yeah. Didn't know I couldn't leave you guys.
To me. I didn't realize this was going to be a problem.
Yeah, couldn't realize you couldn't fend for yourself in a Ruth Chris, you broke bitch. You know?
For real. But yeah, so their relationship sort of quickly takes on a darker tone. So like she moves into this nice penthouse. it's all like she, at his insistence, like sells or gets rid of most of her stuff. Like his house is decorated the way he wants with like very fancy stuff.
Yeah.
He loved to shop. He was always wearing like cashmere. Everything in the house was like designer. Um, and in addition to like encouraging her to sell a lot of her shit, um, she gets so wrapped up in this relationship that she kind of loses touch with a lot of people in her life, like her friends
Yeah,
and
probably that
stuff.
uncle off the rip. He was like,
Yeah. Uncle's like, fuck this.
yeah.
Um, but he just was really demanding of her time and like was very dismissive of her friends and relatives. And he started to be really controlling. So he gives her a cell phone and then like uses like Find My Friends to like keep an eye on where she is all the time.
Woof.
He would always like kind of linger when she was like making phone calls. He would always like be kind of lingering around, like, subtly eavesdropping on what's going on. And she would sort of try to bring it up, and he would sort of gaslight her into thinking she was being unreasonable.
Yeah.
Until like the summer. So I think this is like probably 6 months after they got married. She is looking at some bank records because she's like a director at Marwa or whatever. And she sees this name on a bunch of corporate documents, Mahela Zevoanu. And she's like, I don't know who this is. I've never heard of this person. They have signing authority on this company bank account. Like, who is this? And she asks him who it is. And he's like very tight-lipped. He's just like, she's a former business associate. I'm helping her out, and kind of leaves it at that. So she's like, that's weird,
Yeah.
So she's sort of already thinking things are afoot. Then around the same time, she brings her wedding ring to get it resized. And the jeweler is at first like, wow, this is a really nice ring. Then he gets out his magnifying glass and he's like, this is costume jewelry. This is not a real ring. And what Rosenberg says is what you said. He said, this was my grandmother's ring. And back then it was very common to have the real ring and like a decoy ring when you went out.
Yeah.
And they must have gotten mixed up. And so I got the decoy ring and I thought I had the real ring.
Okay. I thought he was going to say some shit like, I just didn't give you the decoy ring, which would be another would be a huge, oh, that's already a red flag. And then you're like, so you just didn't tell me that the one that I had on was fucking fake. Also, like, I don't cost, like, maybe I know a little bit more about jewelry from my pawn shop days, but I feel like, if you're looking at this ring, you got this crazy nice ring and you're looking at it, I feel like if you're not putting it together, like, I don't think this shit's real. You know what I'm saying? Like diamonds and gold are sought after because they look like diamond and gold. Like,
they're hard to replicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this story may be elaborated. Like, it might be that she went into the jeweler and the jeweler's immediately like, this is fake.
Yeah. She's like, he immediately commented on how nice my ring was.
Right. But yeah, he was just like, oh, at some point, this has been in my family. It must have gotten mixed up. And so again, like all of this stuff is kind of, she's just like, interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting that all this.
Is an odd question. Does he have an accent?
That is a good question. I think he has like a light accent.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of, I did watch a little bit of him speaking, but like not a whole lot. It's like sort of an unplaceable accent.
Yeah, broadly
I don't really
European.
Know what a Swiss accent like. But it's slight, I would say.
Yeah.
It's slight from what I watched. So she's like, all this stuff is sort of in her head. And then a few months after that, he gets like physically abusive with her. And she calls her daughter on Skype the next day. And he's again kind of lingering around listening. And she and her daughter, because she knew he was listening, they were talking like, oh, how's your day? What's going on? But they were communicating with written signs.
Oh, man. I love when I swear, if a mother and daughter team have teamed up and they're against you, like, pack it up, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So at that point, the daughter, Antoinette and her daughter sort of work together to figure out like what she's going to do. And she ends up going to the police about this guy.
Yeah.
Which like good for her. I mean, if somebody is, it's tough because she did get taken for a lot of money. But I get just being like, well, I'll hang out with this rich guy. I don't know what's going on with his finances, but like, I'm having a good
Yeah,
time. My
yeah,
apartment's really nice.
yeah.
Um, more complicated when you're married if any of it's going to come back on you.
Yeah.
But good for her for instantly, as soon as it gets physical, being like, well, I'm not putting up with this anymore.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
fuck this. So this is the beginning of the end for Albert Rosenberg. The fact that she went through this and went to the police. This is the start of the demise of this guy. So let's backtrack. Let's talk a little bit about what this dude is up to. So like many of our subjects on this show, a lot of things about his life story are sort of fuzzy and unconfirmed. I found a few different tellings of things. He seems to tell his story differently every time.
I would imagine.
So, and starting from the beginning, he does not have a birth certificate, he says. And so according to him, the reason he doesn't have a birth certificate is because he was born in Egypt during the Second World War. Unclear whether that's true. It could very well be true. It could not be. He says he was born in Cairo while his father, who was a Canadian international lawyer, was stationed there in the 40s working for the UN. And then his mother was a French national who grew up in Switzerland, and she met his father in Egypt. So he's born in Egypt. They leave Cairo, they go to Switzerland, and he was raised in this like idyllic Swiss town on a lake. And that he had this like very privileged life, according to him. By the 60s, so when he's a teenager, they go to Canada. They settle in Canada. And this part apparently seems to be true. His mom opened a well-known designer boutique in Yorkville, that fancy neighborhood.
Okay.
So that seems to be true. However, she was not Swiss or French. She was just Egyptian, from what we can tell.
I think just as I guess if you're going for exotic sounding stuff to try to sell your scam, like Egyptian's pretty rad too, you know.
It's weird because like from what they could find about this woman, which like I guess she was interviewed back in the day when she owned this boutique. She was Egyptian and so was her husband. So like I don't know why he made up this stuff. I mean, according to the history of this woman, they just left Egypt for Canada in the 50s.
Yeah.
They never lived in Switzerland.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like, Jewish people, like the sort of where Jewish people settled and ended up, like there's a lot of movement there.
Yeah.
So like maybe, he was born in Egypt, but maybe his family, like somewhere in this lineage was from Europe or
Yeah, I
something
can
like
see that.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's weird to claim it when it's a lie.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's weird to...
Well, also, like if you're going for like the social cachet, like Swiss and French have, I think, different impact, like a different feel.
Glamorous.
Yeah, to the Western brain. Whereas in Egypt, I mean, like I think Egypt is cool, but I wouldn't like. I would say like your average mind out there may not readily associate Egypt with like wealth, dependability, financial stability. Like which is what he's trying to sell. So I can see that.
Right. You're not going to be like a billionaire baron from Egypt unless you have like royal ties.
They don't even have barons, dog. They have something else. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not baron.
Exactly. So so I think you might be right about that. I also think there's like a proximity to whiteness thing going on where probably a lot of the business people in Toronto that he's mixing with are not Arabic, not Arab, which like, again, he's Jewish. He may not identify with that anyway, but like being like, I'm from Egypt sets you further apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so his family, it seems like, were in Egypt and then moved to Canada. His dad, ironically enough, with this whole ring thing, his dad was allegedly a jeweler. So he definitely knew that was a fake ring.
Yeah.
So it seems like he grew up in this fancy neighborhood in Toronto because his mom worked there, and he moved there once he was an adult. He lived in this fancy neighborhood, Yorkville. He claims that he owns this house that he was living in. But real estate records show it's owned by somebody else. And that guy was just like, yeah, I don't know. I rented that house to him for a while in the 90s. Like he doesn't own it. It's been like
So did he just
20
show back
years.
up? Was like, and had the, like, did he like have the key or some shit? Like, did he just kind of?
No, he just said, I own this house. Like he was
Yeah.
living in the penthouse, right? So
Oh,
like
yeah.
he wasn't trying to live in this house. He was just saying, this is one of my holdings.
Okay, got you. All right.
Property. So again, he says he went to the University of Toronto and Harvard. Nobody has any records of him. He did go to Switzerland in the 70s. He also spent some time in Israel, and it's unclear where, like, this is where things get confusing, right? So he was briefly married once before. I couldn't find any information about his first wife, but his second wife, some accounts say they met in Israel. Some accounts say they met in Switzerland. She, Karen Wander, is the actual descendant of the Ovaltine people.
Oh,
so he
wow.
was briefly married into the Ovaltine fortune, which I can imagine was not unintentional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Man, way to fumble the bag, buddy. Like you just stuck around there, man.
Well, the weird thing is, like, she also seems kind of crooked, and I don't know how much money the Ovaltine family has, but she didn't have to be all crooked.
Yeah. That's part of the, like, if you got it like that, you can just chill. You don't have to scam people. Like,
right.
Yeah, you just sit in
your grandfather made Ovaltine.
Yeah, on a mountain of powdered chocolate and cash, man. Like,
Exactly. So they're either in Switzerland or Israel. They have some kids. They move back to Toronto at this point. And they open a staple of scam businesses, an art gallery.
That's yeah. We've been learning that lately.
Yes. So they would accept these valuable paintings from international galleries on consignment to sell in Canada. And then they would use the proceeds of sales to pay for their own shit. Car leases, racket club memberships, antiques. And they would do that in lieu of sending the payments back to the original gallery. So they were just ripping people off.
Yeah.
This only lasted for like 3 years before they declared bankruptcy, because obviously no one would work with them. They were just fucking ripping people off. But I'd imagine this is when, especially because he grew up in this fancy neighborhood, he's using all of these social connections to like sell this art, right?
Yeah.
And they're not getting ripped off. The social connections aren't getting ripped off.
No, yeah, they're paying for art and getting the art, and yeah, done deal. They're good. Right. Man, like if you keep this up until you die, how is it different than being wealthy? You know, like it feels like if
every
you could
time we do one of these stories, I'm like, how, like, it would be so unsurprising. And I bet there are examples of this, of like, this could have been how like Mark Cuban started out. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, if you fake it till you make it, like once you make it and you've got the resources to to wipe away how you faked it, you know, like you're
right.
locked in.
Once you're far enough in the black, you can make a lot of this stuff go away.
Yeah. Behind every great fortune, there's a great crime. You know, it's like
exactly. But yeah, so they go bankrupt, and then after that, one of the people who got ripped off called the police. Albert and Karen Rosenberg were charged with fraud totaling over $300,000. She hightails it back to Europe, and he goes to jail. Yeah. So, and this is in the 80s. So this is like, he will go to jail multiple more times. He is a career criminal. So, and while he's awaiting trial, what does he do? He gets a new girlfriend. Of course he does. This guy is very charming. He, again, is in the world of art. Her name is Lorraine Monk. She's a respected photographer in Canada. And she doesn't know that he's on trial at this point. She's like totally in the dark about it.
How do you hide that? You know, like I just like you like it feels like keeping anything secret obviously is going to be like a lot of work and stress. But like if you're actively on trial for fraud and you're just completely hiding the fact that you have like a court date, that's something.
I guess you just pretend you have a job.
Yeah.
And they just think you're going to your job every day, but you're really going to court. I mean, it's not like he was out on bail. So
yeah.
You're just like, I have to take a meeting, but it's with the parole officer or
Yeah.
something, you know?
Down at the
With the court.
courthouse. I'm secretly a lawyer. I should have told you this.
That'd be a good way to get around it. Say you're a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I do a bit
You
about
gotta
that.
wear a
yeah.
suit.
Yeah, I do a bit about being like, I got court in the morning. We gotta go to court for it. I'm a lawyer.
Yeah, it'll work. So he basically does the same thing on her. He's like, oh, we'll raise money for your photography museum because I have a line on this Picasso. And I just need money from you to buy the Picasso, and then we can sell it at a profit because I have all of these art contacts. So she writes him a check for $100,000, and then he's like, bye. And she reports it, and then he is on trial for a whole other scam. Like, he gets accused of this. And then there's another $500,000 loan that he ripped off of someone. So this guy just like can't stop.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I get one fraudulent $500,000 loan. I'm good. Like, you know,
Right.
I'm set.
I'm set for life. I'm gone.
I would never have to pretend there's a Picasso anywhere. I'd be good.
I guess it would be like, the problem would be, because that isn't enough to live on. So like eventually you'd have to get another job. Like it'd be enough to live on for like many years, but it would probably run out.
It would run out. Yeah. You know? And I have no problem working. I'm completely used to doing it. He clearly is not. So like,
well, it's like, I have no problem working, but if I had a fraudulent $500,000 loan, I'd imagine I'd have trouble getting a job.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't mind working. That W-2 is not going through, you know? I guess you just get under the table work and then you're fine.
Yeah. Has this guy considered doing trades work? You know?
Yeah.
Get your hands dirty, man. Come
on. But yeah, so he eventually gets 4 years for all of this stuff. He gets out in 91, and he basically moves to Halifax and starts pulling the same scheme on people. He's always posing as Swiss. So like, I don't know, maybe his family was from Switzerland before they were, like, maybe they weren't from Egypt. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I don't know what this guy's deal is, but he is always pretending to be Swiss.
Yeah. I wonder if he gets caught up on language barriers, because you know, like obviously they speak Swiss in Switzerland, but
he speaks fluent English.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering if he ever gets like with like Canada being like, I don't know, like they speak French there. Would you be expected to speak French if you're Swiss? I know Europeans like all normally speak like 2 to 3 languages.
Yeah, this guy does speak French from what I understand.
Okay, all
right. But also like, he probably learned it in Canada. Like everybody in that part of Canada has to learn French.
Yeah, so. my mame was born in Maine and didn't learn English till my dad was like in his late teens. Like, that's how much English was not. She just didn't have to learn it.
They're pretty serious about like bilingual education in Eastern Canada. It's pretty wild. They're really cucked by those Quebecois.
They're wielding a lot of power, those guys.
They really are. Yeah. They're like, y'all are gonna learn French.
Yeah.
It's pretty nuts. But yeah, so he gets out, he's doing the same shit in Halifax. He gets busted again in 94. Then he goes back to Toronto in 98. And this is a fun one to me. So he, of course, gets another girlfriend. Her name is Brigitte Baldes. And according to contemporary reports, she is a baddie. She is a bad bitch. He dresses her in fur. She's got jewels. They leave Toronto and go to Switzerland, where they rent a blue Porsche Boxster and hightail it to the south of France.
Nice.
As you do in your furs.
Yeah.
Your Porsche.
But like having like a badass girl with you, like that in and of itself can help you perpetuate a scam. Like if you just got this like just a baddie on your arm, like that opens doors for you. And so like, well, we want her in here. I guess you can come too. You know, like that's
definitely. And also it's like, well, if she's wasting her time with you, you must have something.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so they go to Aix-en-Provence. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he says he's a Swiss American business tycoon, and he's there to secure a bunch of real estate. He's like buying up real estate. And I feel like this is something we've seen before, where if you want to be treated to a good time, act like you're thinking about buying real estate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you will get the red carpet rolled out for
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, dude,
Just be like,
100%.
I don't know. Just like buying you more and more steak dinners or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, I haven't
Yeah,
decided
yeah.
yet. So they're like the talk of the town. They're like everybody is like so jazzed that they're there to like revitalize their economy or whatever. And he is like a total, unsurprisingly, he is like a total braggart. Like he
Oh,
loves
yeah.
to pump himself up. He said he was a licensed pilot and then he had a private plane. He said he was a champion tennis player. He said he was a PhD candidate in psychology. Like he's just like
Yeah.
Mr. Renaissance man,
Yeah. Man, at least he's having fun, I guess, Like, it sounds like he's having a good time.
If
But
it weren't for the spousal abuse, like this guy
Yeah.
would be pretty fun. Like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he's just ripping off rich people, which like we're usually okay with.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, where we, there's like obviously like we draw the line, but like just this portion of him, very fun guy.
And I feel like the scam we talked about at the beginning, Antoinette, who was just like kind of a normal middle class person. I feel like that was him falling on hard times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're a scammer's like sure thing, like like that's the
that's like his like scene in Boogie Nights where Mark Wahlberg is gets beat up in the parking lot because he's like hustling.
Oh yeah,
like it's you're sucking dick in a pickup truck if you're going after like regular people and you're this
yeah,
guy,
yeah. That's just making ends meet. That's like the chick who just got her tax return, and you're just like, no, looks like I gotta pose for a few photos on social media for a couple weeks.
Exactly. But like even still, even with this like boastful persona, people did find him very charming. So there was this Canadian journalist who happened to live in this town in France when he was there, and he and his partner befriended the Rosenberg and his bad bitch.
Yeah.
And he says that Rosenberg was magnetic, his often crude boasting tinged with a mischievous sense of humor. He recalled a day when he and Rosenberg went to go play tennis together at a posh country club. When they got there, the receptionist had no record of a member named Albert Rosenberg. Moments later, Rosenberg arrived and took his place on the court with the kind of bold self-assuredness that discourages questions. Yeah. So he was just to walk in like you own the place and people won't stop you.
Act like you've been there. Yeah, it's like we cover that all the time in the show. It's insane how far that will get you.
I also I really do understand. Like if you ask me, do I like people who brag? I would say no. But there is something fun about somebody with this personality who is also funny. Like who is also sort of self-aware of how self-aggrandizing they are. Like if they do a little bit of a wink and I can understand why that might end up why you would maybe overlook some flaws because people like that are kind of fun to be around.
Yeah, friend of the show, and I say this knowing he would agree that Radu Bondar. I don't know if you know Radu that well, Houston comic. His family's got some money, and but he's cool as hell. One of my good friends, but like one of the friends, he came over to my house when I was living in the Sandstone apartments, and I had a bag of hot Cheetos on the counter, and I was just like, "Hey, you want a Cheeto?" He goes, "Oh no, thank you. I'm a very elite level of white."
That's funny. I feel like the vibe of this guy from what it sounds like, it's funny because his documentary is called The Talented Mr. Rosenberg, and it's sort of the opposite situation in The Talented Mr. Ripley. Do you know that? Have you read that or seen the movie?
I know. I'm like aware of The Talented Mr. Ripley. It was Matt Damon. He pretends to be other people and then lives their life a bit.
As a scam fan, you would love it. It's great.
Yeah. I think I wanted to see it as a kid and never got around to it. Now it's like so far off my radar, but I would like to see that.
If it's on streaming or something, check it out. It's great. Yeah. But Jude Law in that movie plays like a very charming but kind of shallow family money guy. He's sort of living off a trust fund in Europe and he has this sort of breezy, glamorous life. And I feel like that kind of vibe from this of just like, you don't really know where he gets his money, but you're not really going to ask because you're along for the ride. And it's like, it's fun. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Rosenberg's European tour comes to an end in Italy when he gets arrested because he was passing what in French is known as chèque en bois, which means wooden checks, which is, I guess, the term for like a bad check.
I wonder where
you knock on it and it's wooden.
I wonder what the cultural thing is there. Like, like when you in their language it makes sense. Oh yeah, the check is not, it's wood. It's right. Like, it's wood. And you're like, I guess hot check makes even like, it doesn't make any sense at all either. Really. Yeah. Damn.
I guess it's like that. Yeah. But so they get arrested. But then as from what I've heard about the French police and what I know from Anatomy of a Fall, they fuck up the investigation so they get to go free.
Oh, nice.
The French police fuck it up.
Too busy smoking cigs.
Yeah, exactly. They ashed on the paperwork.
Yeah. Oh, sacre bleu. There's fucked.
But then they do, of course, what you would do if you get arrested. So they get arrested in Italy at the request of the French police. They're, being held in France. They get out. What do? They go to Cannes and pretend to be film producers.
Nice.
Because what else would you do? You're right there.
That's the move. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like another, like in Europe, they're like, all right, you have been arrested in a European court of law. You are allowed 18 phone calls. I just feel like it'd be way more lax. They're like, look, we're gonna push your court back date. The judge is on vacation for 8 weeks. Like when he's back though, you're gonna have hell to pay, sir.
He's on paternity leave for 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and this is cool. So, Brigitte Valdez, the hot lady he was with, she gets off scot-free.
Nice.
As she should. You're a beautiful lady.
Yeah, get her,
for
girl.
The ride.
Yeah.
Not your fault.
I'm so sorry this happened to you. You can get out of here.
You get to drive away in the Porsche Boxster.
Yeah, she's got like the scarf in the wind with the big sunglasses and shit. Hell
that
yeah,
is
girl.
how I imagine her. 100%.
Yeah.
Scarf around the head, big sunglasses, fur coat.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, he gets in and out of jail multiple times, doing these same things. But here's like the part that brings us sort of full circle, right? So remember I said on that Antoinette found bank statements with this other name on it.
Yeah.
Mihaela Zavuanu, I think is how you pronounce it. So she finds this name on all of these like returns and stuff. And it was basically a person who had fallen victim to the same scam as Antoinette prior to Antoinette. So she gets moved into the penthouse. She signs over her life savings. She's made a director in Marwa Holdings. And then Rosenberg goes to prison. So she is like all set up with this rich guy. And then right before they're supposed to get married in 2010, he goes to jail. He says that
her uncle dodged a bullet, man. Let me tell you.
Right? Yeah, so many restaurant bills he missed out on having to pay.
Let's talk about the victims of the uncles out there of the women this man has seduced.
The true victims. And all So this is smart to me because like he's like a big like rich big shot, right? So he tells her, "Oh, I'm going to jail for like tax issues, tax violations."
It happens once in every rich man's life.
If you're a rich guy, that's not all that impossible. And also you're not considered like person of ill repute if you're a rich guy who doesn't pay their taxes. Yeah. That's just sort of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Cultural norm.
Exactly. So then he gets out of prison, but he tells her, look, you got to move out of the penthouse because my daughter is having like a mental health crisis and she needs to move in with me for a while. And I just need to focus on like taking care of her. Meanwhile, what had really happened was that he had met Antoinette.
Yeah.
Gonna move her in.
This is my daughter who is roughly the same age as me. Like, I guess she would never have seen her. Does he have children?
He does have children, but it does not seem like he is in much contact. They got taken to Europe. After Karen left. So he is up to a lot of other stuff during this time. He publishes a very plagiarized book called Taking Stock in Your Future. And he did this thing that really cracks me up. So he would go to these like fancy coffee shops in this like fancy neighborhood, and he would sit at the cafe and have his book on the table with him so that people would be like, "What are you reading?" And he'd be like, "It's my book."
That's my own book.
And it was all about like financial, you know, like how to make it rich or whatever.
It's like a heavily plagiarized book. It's called The Catcher in the Wheat. And it's just a coming of age tale about the phoniness of adult life.
Exactly.
I edit our podcast videos in a coffee shop because I've found that when I'm at my room, I will click the mouse 2 or 3 times and then I would just lay back down and watch TV. So I take it out in public, and I always just think about people seeing me like editing just like my face on the fucking screen. I'm always like, well, I wonder what they think is going on over here.
I think I told this story one time about my dad one time for Christmas asked me, he was like, I don't have any like recent pictures of you, and I would love like a framed photo of you for my office because like I only have ones from when you were a little baby. And so I got this like nice picture of me framed, and I brought it to my parents' house for Christmas, and I hadn't wrapped it yet. And so like, I don't know, a few days before Christmas, I was in my parents' basement where they kept all the like wrapping stuff. And at the same time, I was because sometimes I listen to our podcast and my other podcast to sort of like spot check and make sure they sound okay.
Yeah.
And my mom came down and she was cracking up because I was listening to my own podcast, wrapping a framed photo of myself. She was like, "This is sick."
Yeah. You have a problem.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
I guess I'm no better than this guy. But yeah, so like even while he was swindling these women, he was not like a romance scammer exclusively, because he had the acquaintance and the ear of all of these like business people in Toronto. And he would just like, one thing he would do is he would approach a company seeking a financial loan, and he'd say, "Look, I have all this money. I'm a billionaire investment banker. But I need to like check out your financials before I consider loaning you money." And so there would be a 5% fee on the amount of money you were seeking for a loan to do the investigation of your financials.
Damn.
And then of course he would just be like, "I don't want to give you the loan."
Yeah.
And then keep all the money. And that's just like the cost of doing business, I guess. So like people didn't think that was unusual.
That's so nuts to me. That's kind of crazy. That reminds me of, in the past, I've heard drug dealers say certain things like, "Hey, if you come over, you got to buy this." It's like, or like, I don't know, I've heard people say that, and I've been like, "Can you do that to somebody?" like if the person comes over, they don't like what they see, they don't have to buy it. They'd be like, "If I break it out, you got to buy it." Like,
right.
Yeah, that's well, different worlds, I guess.
This is a tactic that I think is very interesting that he used to great effect. One potential investor who met him said, if Rosenberg met a successful businessman, he would ask to be introduced to that man's lawyer. If he met the lawyer, he'd ask for an introduction to that lawyer's most successful client, and so on. So he would just, like, you know, he'd be like, "I have all of this money and power and status, like, let's network."
Yeah.
And then like it raises the esteem of the lawyer or the businessman if he can introduce him to somebody even more sort of powerful, right?
Yeah.
So it just goes on and on and on.
That's like the Benjamin Franklin. They said he would do this thing. It's like, it's documented once, but I'm sure he did it other times. If someone didn't like him, he would ask them to lend him something.
Right.
And it's like a psychological trick, because it'd be like, "Oh, I actually need a book I know you have in your collection. Could you lend me that book?" And they'd be like, "I don't even." They'd lend it to him, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, why would I lend this book to a guy I don't like? I guess I like him. I guess I like him now.
I like him.
Yeah.
So he just like he was apparently really charming and really sly about these business opportunities. Like he would do the classic scammer thing of he'd hang out with people, he'd wine and dine them, and then he would sort of be like, "Oh, by the way, I have this thing you might be interested in." Like he would say it like, "I'm helping you out by telling you about this," right?
Yeah.
So he does eventually get charged after Antoinette goes to the police. But according to the Toronto cops who worked on this, they're like, he ripped off a lot of very powerful people in Toronto. They just didn't come forward because they were embarrassed.
Yeah.
So like
another armor that we see all the time. People just, the no one wanting to come forward. This feels
Mhm.
like it's like he feels like he had real connections into these worlds. And it was
Yes.
almost like he knew what he had. That was his leverage. He was like, I have enough for the facade to be kept up. I have access to this thing and these people, and I can use that as my tool. Whereas a lot of times people are working, they're going up. They're trying to be like, they're trying to gain access to those things and to those people in those circles. He had them and was like, how
He
can I?
just didn't have the stuff to back it
He's
up.
got stuff to back
Yeah.
it up. So he's like, I'm going to use my access to this world to swindle and fool somebody else, which is, I mean, I guess it's, knowing what your hand is and playing it well.
Right. I mean, because think about it, like his mom owned a high-end clothing store. So all of these wealthy people are coming in all the time.
Yeah.
But when you work in like luxury fashion like that, your relationships with your clients are really important. He grew up in this ritzy neighborhood. So like
Yeah.
all of these people were his neighbors. He knew the culture. Yeah, you're totally right. I think he's somebody who his currency was his ability to connect with people and to network and to bring people together. And that was how he amassed money and power, or at least attempted to. But yeah, so he is eventually charged with domestic assault and 8 counts of fraud, totaling $1.2 million. He was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. And again, I can't figure out whether he is still in jail or not.
Yeah.
This article came out in 2015 and he was in jail then. And he, is still really evasive about his story. It's really unclear how old he is. It seems like he might actually be much older than he is telling people he is, which is like a pretty impressive scheme if you can pull that off. Like, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess just ripping people off keeps you young at heart.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a little bit of their life force every time you swindle them. And
Yeah.
also, yeah, like as I say, he said he was born during World War II, which in 2015, you're not, you're not a spring chicken.
You're no spring chicken. Yeah. So yeah, he could have been in his mid 60s. He could have been up to his mid 80s. They're like not sure.
Damn.
So there's an article the reporter Courtney Shea found in the Toronto Daily Star going through the archives a blurb about an Albert Rosenberg who was a Toronto high school student who won an award in 1946. So like that was when he was potentially in high school.
Yeah.
So
damn.
this dude could be hella old.
Yeah, he could be pushing a hundo. Damn, pushing a buck. Get it, dude.
Well, now, yeah, this is an old story.
Yeah,
I don't know what his deal is now. He might be. But yeah, so like the reporter's just like, is this you? And he said yes, but then he didn't resolve any of the inconsistencies.
Yeah, it also seems like that'd be the thing that he'd be like, yeah, that's me. Of course, I've been winning awards since awards have been given
That's
out.
true. It was an accolade.
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
might have encouraged him to say it was him.
Yeah, you're damn right. It's me. This guy reminds me of like one time I was at a diner in like kind of like deep West Austin into like Lakeway, and I was sitting there and I was eating some lunch, and there was a guy sitting at a little bar counter, and he was just talking the ear off the regular, and he like clearly knew everybody in West Austin. He knew everybody around Lakeway. I saw him leave. He had a shitty old Peugeot, and like the idea, I was like, this guy is like a West Austin fail son of some family.
Yeah,
and he just hangs around, beats around town out there. He's probably cash poor, but just has like money tied up and stuff. And like I said, has connections to that scene.
Right.
And
He's gonna be fine.
He's gonna be fine. Yeah, he'll be okay.
Yeah, I feel like this guy is maybe if he had taken a little less liberty, he might have been okay and not been in and out of jail. He might have just been held aloft as like a fun guy to be around by these wealthier people.
Yeah.
But I think maybe his ego kept him from.
Yeah, he didn't want that. He didn't want to be.
He could have just been the trust fund sugar baby of the Ovaltine lady. Like, why do you have to do all this shit?
Yeah, we didn't even need the second and third act of your story. Yeah. Also, yeah, I have no qualms. If you are a rich person with a group of rich person friends and you need a jester type to just hang around,
give us a call.
Yeah, we are here for it. We'll do it. I don't give a shit.
So I will leave you with 2 pieces of info and then we will be done. So Courtney Shea, the author of this piece, went to visit him in prison. And she says, I pressed Rosenberg on the details of his crimes, but for every accusation, there was an explanation. It was all a misunderstanding, he said. There was much talk of the trust, which Rosenberg says he's still entitled to, is very much in existence and is worth millions. That's the Ovaltine Trust.
Oh, yeah.
The police say it is entirely fabricated. Talking to Rosenberg, I realized that the best liars box you in with your own discomfort. Many of Rosenberg's victims say they knew something was off. There were signs, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Which I feel like is really true, is like, especially I think rich people who really pride themselves on having good manners and stuff. It's like, well, I'm not going to call this guy out on skipping the bill. I'm not going to take issue with this seeming inconsistency or whatever, like, because it's considered bad manners.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
like
prudent.
that it would be uncomfortable to confront.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's there's a young kid on our job site that has like a wild ass story for everything, and it's like just nobody really calls him out. Like he said the other day about scanning his fake ID because like Circle K now scans your ID if you go to buy alcohol. He was like, back in the day, a couple years ago, I put my fake ID in there. And it went later on, my boy was like, they just came out with those things. He's like, he's 22. If he would have needed a fake, he's like, that literally just hit Circle K like last week. He's like, there's no way. Yeah, it's shit like that. But it's like, I'm not gonna say anything about it. You operate in that little comfort zone.
Yeah. So that's where this guy lived. And he really paid the prices for it because he went to jail all the damn time.
Yeah.
I guess he was just somebody who was like, I'm going to live high when I live high, and I'm going to live low when I live low.
Yeah,
like,
feast and famine, dude, I mean, worth it? I would say ultimately, yeah, it seems like he had a hell of a life. I mean, this dude, escaped, like leaves prison in Italy and takes his bad bitch out to Cannes Film Festival. I wonder what type of movie he said he was producing. Like, if it was like, did he attach himself to like an existing project, or was he like, did he get a little creative and he was like, I'm doing coming of age space Marines, or something.
Yeah, I feel like the way you should do it is you should do it like with the real estate and be like, I'm here to buy a film. I'm here to acquire the rights and distribute.
Damn,
and then people are again rolling the red carpet out for you. But I don't know if he did that.
The only downside is you have to listen to like 8 filmmakers talk to you about their movie. Like
that's kind of boring. That's not cool.
Yeah, I would just be like up top, like, I'm here to buy a movie. Hey, do you have any drugs on you? Like, I got drugs. Yes, I am here to buy a movie. Let's talk. Do you have anything that would help us talk for 18 hours? Like, buddy, do I? Man. Well, Albert Allen Rosenberg. That's crazy.
That's right.
I just listened to something about the Rosenbergs that got executed for spying. And I don't know. So Rosenberg has been hot in the rotation for me in the last 48 hours. Well, Kath, thank you so much. That was crazy. That was a fun tale. That was like classic lie, cheat, and steal, social climber. Yeah. For the Anna Delveys, the fake Saudi Arabian prince. That's how we keep the lights on, folks. Speaking of keeping the lights on, if you enjoyed what you heard today and you've tore through our back catalog and you're like, I need more. If you're fiending, you can go to patreon.com/lie, cheat, and steal. We have a whole huge back catalog, years of worth of episodes, and we drop 2 more every month. And so you can go there and check that out. You also get access to our Discord server, which is full of fun, like-minded individuals who love to talk about scams, stuff that doesn't always make it onto the podcast. It's a fun place to be. Another fun place to be, our social media. You can go to patreon.com/ I apologize, that's what I just said. You can go to Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and we're at Lie, Cheat, Steal Podcast. You can check us out there. I'm on the internet at PZTX, PEEZYTX, no underscore. Watch out for that guy. He's going to try to be your friend. Kath, you got anything for us?
I'm Kath Barbadoro on social media. Follow me there. Follow me on Twitter because I accidentally deleted my account and I'm slowly trying to get my 40,000 followers back.
How's Twitter these days? What's it like out there?
Oh, it's
Cool. Well, all right, guys. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope your fall's getting off to a great start. And you know what? Be safe, be smart, but above all, don't get caught.
Don't get caught. See you next time.